chair. Everybody's chair. Right on time. All right, good afternoon. Welcome to the Hamilton County Commission staff meeting, September 19th, 2023. We'll ask everybody to introduce themselves on the dais.
Chrissy Rachel, Assistant Clerk.
Leslie Hervey, Clerk to the Board. Stephanie Summerall Dumas, Commissioner.
Good afternoon. I'm County Commissioner Denise Driehaus.
Jeff Ludo, County Administrator.
Charlie Ennis, Prosecutor's Office.
And I'm Hamilton County Commission Board President Alicia Reese. Okay, we have only one item on the agenda today, so I want to welcome MSD Director Diana Christie. We're going to talk about the Little Miami Wastewater Treatment Plant Solids Handling Project. And Director Christie, welcome, and you'll introduce whoever else you'd like to be introduced. Welcome.
Thank you, and good afternoon, President Reese and Commissioners. Happy to be here today. I'm Diana Christie. I have with me Ryan Welsh, our Deputy Director and Chief Engineer, and we're here today to just give you an update on this project that is already underway. It will be some time before it's under construction. But let me jump to the slides. Why not? There we go. Thank you. So as you know, this is a project taking place at our Little Miami treatment plant. And I always like to start by reminding folks, what it is we do. And yes, it's all about clean water. But one of the components of the wastewater treatment process is that when we treat the wastewater, we have a byproduct of solids. And how we manage those solids is what we're going to talk about today. And this new project is specifically dealing with the solids that are generated at our facilities on the east side. So the solids handling project, right now we are in the design phase already. So we're talking about the design and construction of an anaerobic digestion. Facility. So this is a new process that we'll be constructing at our Little Miami treatment plant. This plant is over on the east end near Lunken Airport. The design already started this year in January of 2023. It will be underway through next year, and we are aiming to start construction the end of 2024, so sometime next year. And the process for this project is really focusing on processing the waste solids that is a byproduct of treatment. Not only the solids that are generated at the Little Miami treatment plant, but also the other two treatment plants on the east side, which is our Polk Run and Sycamore facilities. And as I'm going to share with you today, this project is a really exciting project for us. It will reduce our carbon footprint. It's going to improve our energy efficiency. It will divert waste from the landfill for beneficial reuse. So just to orient you with where our Little Miami treatment plant is, this is along Kellogg Avenue over on the east side, and you can see there on the top of the visual is the Lunken Airport. And just on the left side, you can see where the Little Miami bike trail is, and we'll talk about that a bit, and of course the Ohio River. This is an artist rendering. This project is going to be located, again, at our existing treatment plant. It will be an expanded footprint. This is just a rendering. This isn't exactly the buildings that will be put into place and where they will be, and we're still really trying to optimize how we use the property that we have in place. But again, it is, you can see a little bit more there of where we are here along Kellogg Avenue. There are some facilities on the other side of Kellogg, some junkyard facilities that you see there with a lot of the vehicles and to the west of the plant as well. So why are we doing this? So this project is really something we've been talking about for many years, and we're excited that it's finally in design. But back in 2016, MSD in 2016, we started landfilling the solids from this plant, and that was due to new emissions regulations that went into place. And at our Little Miami facility, we used to incinerate the solids. We had a large incinerator, and we, after going through various analyses of what it would take to upgrade the incinerator to meet the new Clean Air Act requirements, it was too costly to upgrade that facility, to upgrade that incineration. So at that time, we made a decision to stop incinerating, and we started landfilling as we studied the best options for managing the solids for the entire district. So following that, we embarked on a solids handling master plan that really looked at the solids that are generated at all our facilities, the process we use at our Mill Creek plant, which is incineration, that was upgraded to meet the emissions requirements for that plant. So we do have incineration on the west side, but really looking at what is the right solution for the rest of the district in managing our solids and what all we needed to do to better handle the solids. So again, the solids have been going to Rumpke landfills since 2016. We did consider an alternative that would have hauled all of the solids to the Mill Creek plant where we incinerate, and that was part of that master plan. And ultimately, when we looked at the business case where we do what's called a triple bottom line, so you're looking at not only the economic factors, which look at not just the capital costs, but the operational costs, but we also look at the environmental and social costs of the solution. And for those reasons, we ruled out the idea of bringing all of our solids to the Mill Creek plant for all three reasons: economic, environmental, and social. So what is anaerobic digestion? Without getting too technical here, essentially anaerobic digestion, this is just a process where we, in the absence of oxygen, we are treating the solids. The solids residuals through the anaerobic digestion process break down. We break down the pathogens, and we also reduce the overall volume of solids, which then ultimately gives us what is called biosolids, which is something that can be beneficially reused. So there you can see, just the visual of the overall process. So the solids, when they are, the solids that come through our process do need to be thickened before they can go into digestion. And then the digestion process it's a closed process. So again, in the absence of oxygen. And in that digestion process, you also create what is called biogas. And we'll talk a bit about the biogas, which is a renewable energy, just here in a minute. But then following that, we have the dewatering process, and we ultimately have the biosolids that we can beneficially reuse. So to talk more specifically about the benefits, first and foremost is that we're going to be diverting this from the landfill, which is the current process, which is we have a large volume of solids being trucked to the landfill every day. So they're going to Rumpke every day from some of our plants. We are, again, looking at how we will beneficially reuse the solids that are produced through the anaerobic digestion process. And those solids can be used for land application on agriculture fields. Some areas are actually turning it into a fertilizer that is sold as a product. There are a lot of different considerations to determine what is the best process or what is the best use for the product or the solids once this project is completed, and that is part of what we're looking at through the design. So our design team and our engineering team are really considering a lot of different factors right now. There are regulatory concerns with regards to certain chemicals that I'm sure you've heard about with PFAS. So we really need to take into consideration what is the best way to manage the solids going forward. But again, what this project will create is a solid that is much different than what we have today. Much lower volume, eliminating the pathogens, essentially what we call a Class A fertilizer. In addition, again, the biogas, and this is where during the anaerobic digestion process we produce biogas or methane, and this will be beneficially reused on site at our treatment plant. We expect that the current estimates show that we will be generating 830 kilowatts of power. That is enough to power our aeration process, which is our blowers. We will also have additional power that we will use for just electricity at the plant. So our plan is to use all of the biogas that is generated on site, again, reducing our reliance on the grid and reducing our carbon footprint. And in addition, with this process, we will be improving overall plant operations because we have to make improvements to the solids handling process that are much needed, both at Little Miami and the other plants where the solids will be being transported for the digestion. Again, because the current process, we generate solids that are then trucked to the landfill, this new project will be reducing truck traffic that leaves our plant. We will be reducing odors overall because we have to upgrade all of those solids handling processes. So really with anaerobic digestion and with wastewater treatment in general, it's not going to be that digestion process where you could potentially get odors. It's the movement of the solids through that thickening and dewatering where you get a lot of odors. So by upgrading those processes as well for this project, we do expect, and the project considers odor control, is one of the main goals and priorities of this project. So we look to overall reduce odors that currently exist at this facility. And we do expect, while there is a high cost of this project, we do expect to be eligible for, and we are working towards applying for up to a $50 million tax credit in the form of reimbursement through the Inflation Reduction Act. So that is something that this project is eligible for because of the renewable energy aspect. So just a few more things to kind of, again, show you what this looks like and where it is, and then I can take questions. The expanded footprint, right now we really, this slide was a few months ago. I'm not sure that we're really going to expand a full 7 acres. We're really trying to optimize the current footprint. We do have a flood levee, a flood wall there because of how close we are to the river. So the current plant and the current levee potentially has to be moved, and the drive, the access drive to Kellogg Avenue is part of the consideration on the new components of this project. But this is all property that the treatment plant already sits on, so we're not acquiring any property from third parties for this project. Let me see. Okay, so the Ohio River Trail, as I mentioned, the bike trail that connects from Lunken Airport and then goes downtown further, goes right along the back of the treatment plant now. So you can see there on the picture on the left side, that's the current view. So it's really not much buffer between our plant and the bike trail today. We are mindful though, because we'll be expanding the plant where there already is a bike path that is heavily used. We want to continue to make sure we maximize that buffer and don't have a negative impact to the trail users. And if anything, can potentially improve that buffer through the project. That's the, I didn't have the second picture up, so on the second picture you can see the area where currently it's very wooded, and we're going to really do as much as we can to minimize losing any of that buffer. So it's important with a project like this and a project of this size where you're in a, in a populated and area with a lot of recreational use that we communicate with our stakeholders and we communicate with the public so they can ask questions and we can hear their concerns throughout this project. So earlier this year, we presented at a city council meeting. Happy to be here today to present to you. We're also attending community council meetings, I think quarterly, just to get some dialogue and hear from our residents. And we have a project-specific webpage on our website. The contract management, this is one of those projects where we are doing a design build. So that's a single entity. Really, it's a team. So one entity is in the lead, and they're designing the project, and we will have a construction estimate that will then, we will advance construction once we're further along in design. And I know Ryan would be happy to talk more about those specifics if you have questions. We do know that the construction estimate that we had about a year ago when this project was in the 2023 CIP, we are seeing higher costs. And the most recent cost estimate for the construction we saw was closer to 170 million. But we are not through the design process yet. So once we are further along and we have a completed basis of design, we will then go through a value engineering process and hopefully continue to, if not bring those costs down, just find every way possible to minimize any further cost increases. That is it on this slide. So I'm happy to go back through any of them or take any questions you have. Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation. Could you go back to, I don't know if it was on the slide or did you make the point you were talking about incineration?
Yes.
I don't want to, can you
I don't
go
really
over
have
that?
a slide on it.
Oh, could
Yeah,
you
no,
highlight that point again?
So yeah, so as you know, so MSD, we have 9 treatment plants. The largest is the Mill Creek treatment plant that's in the West End, where we treat 60 to 70% of the district wastewater is treated there. So it's our largest facility by far. We do incinerate solids. So the same solids we're talking about at that treatment plant, we incinerate. And incineration means they are essentially the solids are burned, and the byproduct of that is an ash that we have an ash lagoon, and you may hear about that at a future meeting because it's something that we have to manage the ash. We store it on site, and then we eventually have to haul that away as well. But incineration of solids is a commonly used method in wastewater treatment, but there are a lot of challenges with incinerators. They require constant maintenance, very expensive, and the emission regulations that we have to comply with, in particular, takes a lot of work. I mean, we have folks that are managing that permit process and making sure that we're in compliance with the emissions regulations. So, but we do continue to operate that, and the plan is to continue to operate the incineration on the west side, and some of the other west side treatment facilities, solids are hauled to the Mill Creek plant for incineration.
Got you. I just brought, when you said that highlighted in it, not necessarily part of this particular presentation, but I am interested, time before all of us were here, I know in the West End, my grandmother, we would have to go, the incineration was right there in the community. And so I don't know from later on in an environmental report or something, I'd like to know, how did that have an effect? I think hopefully we moved away from that. And when you said incineration, and then you said we've got to, speak with the community and those kind of things, that brought that up. Now, the incineration was right in the neighborhood instead of putting your trash out, and you would I would have to go to the fire and throw it in the fire. Has to be something for many of those folks that grew up and lived there, some kind of environmental situation. I don't know, maybe there's been a study, but I'd like to know, Mr. Ludo, if there is a study on that, what happened to the people, not necessarily me, but a lot of people that was in the West End who had to do that before, I guess, the regulations, came in and told us we couldn't do it again. So anyway, when you brought that up, I just wanted, so this will be leaving, incineration would not be at this particular location, and it will continue, or you would, I guess my point is, will you move those operations, and would it double operations in other areas, the west side, as you've indicated, and the West End?
So the current plan, and just to be clear, the MSD solids handling processes that we're talking about are only to treat the MSD, the wastewater that we're treating and the solids that are generated through our process. Many years ago, the city, and I believe it was the city that operated incineration for regular trash, solid waste, which is no longer is happening today. But the incinerators that we have at our plant at Mill Creek will continue to operate and treat the solids that are generated at that plant. And we meet all permit regulations, all compliance that's required there, which is under the Title V of the Clean Air Act. So it's pretty stringent today, what you have to meet at an incinerator like that, but it is just for the MSD solids. So that's going to remain And the solids process that we're constructing on the east side will be just to treat the solids that are generated through the MSD process at those facilities on the east side.
Gotcha. But on the new one with the east side, there'll be no incineration, or it
Correct.
will be?
There,
Okay.
there is, we decommissioned the incinerator in 2015 or 2016.
Okay, so they'll continue as is now, but then the
Yes.
new facility, there'll be no, got it, I understand. Okay, Vice President Treehouse.
Thank you. Thank you, Director Christie. Thanks, Ryan, for being here. Appreciate it. I had a couple of questions as you were going through the presentation. You asked, or you answered some of them. I was wondering, and first of all, let me say that there have been previous county commissioners that would be pretty excited about this conversation about anaerobic digestion. I remember Todd Portun talking about this back, I think it was in 2016, and in 2017, when the other one was decommissioned, as you say, the incinerator, and the question was, now what are we going to do, and how are we going to maybe do things differently? And so you are doing something differently here, and so I'm also excited about it. I don't have the same level of enthusiasm, I'm afraid, as my colleague, but this is a big step. I mean, I can see that you are doing something that is more sustainable and more beneficial to the community, hopefully in the long run. This is our first attempt at anaerobic digestion, correct? Or is it at this scale, should I say?
Scale, many years ago, we used to have it.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
Before my time and
Before our
I'll
times.
speak to that.
Yeah.
So yes, it's not
Okay.
new to the wastewater treatment process. The idea of digestion has been around for a long time. It's just gotten a lot. Technology has really improved the process so that it can be something that can hopefully not have problems associated with it that it used to have.
Yeah, I mean, I see this as but maybe I'm incorrect. I think it's kind of the wave of the future because it's a more sustainable technology than what we're employing in other places. So my questions were related to the impact to the community. And so I was going to ask you about odor. We've had plenty of concerns about odor on the west side in that facility, and we have taken a zero tolerance posture, at least in the past, on the commission related to the odor that's emitted from the MSD facilities. And so I just want to be especially sensitive to that. I hear you saying it's going to reduce the odor that was there when the old process was in place, correct? And so this should make it better?
Yes, and not even so much as from incineration, but just the process that's there today, how we process solids, because we're still generating them every day, and having to haul them off-site. All of that handling, I mean, they're being handled one way or another, whether they're going through a thickening process or a dewatering process, and they're being, put onto trucks and hauled to the landfill is, there are definitely odors associated with that process. And so part of this is to be much more of a contained overall solids handling process. So it's upgrading things that we have in place today.
So is it literally contained when you talk about the thickening process? Is it enclosed?
Ryan, do you want to talk about that? I don't want to misstate anything because
And
not all of it
I've been
is.
down to the Mill Creek facility and seen the transfer that happens and smelled the odor. I don't know how else to put it. And the attempt to enclose that operation, the truck comes in, the door shuts, the transfer happens. But so what does this one look like by way of containment?
So there's a lot of points where you can generate odors. We're going to contain the solids dewatering process, for example, it'll use centrifuges instead of a belt filter press, which is open, and be a lot less odors that can escape into the building. And then, of course, if they're in the building, they can escape outside the building, and we'll have keep everything under a negative pressure and send it through a odor control unit, which is something that what we have there today at Little Miami is pretty antiquated. I think it was last updated in the early 90s. Technology's gotten better with odor control, with dewatering, thickening. So everything about it will be state of the art. So, and one good thing about Little Miami, we do have some complaints, but they're not as many as you would expect. So we've got it will improve. So it's not. We've got plenty of room to get better, and with this project, we will. So
Okay.
It's not necessarily a big hotspot for odor complaints.
It's good to know that it's top of mind, though, when it comes to, implementing a new kind of
It's in
process
the
here.
title of the project, actually, just so that everyone's aware all the time. It's Little Miami Solids Handling and Odor Control Project.
Great, thank you. I had another question about traffic, which you've already discussed. You talked about the end use for the solids and how it could be used in, I guess you said agriculture. Am I right? Where do you think the end, or do you already know where the end product might be utilized?
So things are changing pretty rapidly as far as regulations. We're going to produce a Class A solid, which is the highest level of pathogen kill, so the least pathogens, which makes it easier to dispose of compared to the default, which would be a Class B. But we're going to evaluate where we're at probably in 2026, about 2 years into construction, about 2 years before the project facility goes online, to make sure that we're looking at the most up-to-date state of the market and state of the regulations. PFAS is something that we have to be mindful of, but it's not set in stone that this is going to be land applied for agricultural use, because there are plenty of places where you can land apply and get a beneficial use that isn't necessarily for a food crop. So it could be for reclaiming, mined areas, or other types of agricultural tree farms, that kind of thing. So it's something that we're looking at, and we're going to look at it more closely as we get closer to commissioning the facility.
Okay, great. Yeah, I just wonder if there are any community partners, Hamilton County partners, for instance, that might benefit from the final product. So just keep that in mind. And then lastly, you talked about this too. I was wondering about the total cost of the project, knowing that you've got an ask in for some federal dollars. So will you remind me that this is started already? What are we going to see related to budget related to this project?
So in about a year, so sometime next summer, we'll be at a point with a design that we have what's called guaranteed maximum price from the design builder. And that's the price that they say they can build it for. They have to agree to build it for that price and no more. At that point, we'll come back to the board and request funding for that. We won't know what that is. Like, we're working on the design now. We'll have a basis of design here in the next couple months with an estimate that we'll go through a value engineering exercise to try to reduce that cost as much as possible. But we have to fund it first, and in order to be eligible for the tax credit, we have to start construction before the end of 2024. We have to complete construction by 2028, and we're eligible for 30% of the total project cost. So, and I think there's, depending on if we can have enough Buy American quantity in the project, which is not clear yet, we could get up to 40%. So we're saying 30%. It goes up to 40% if we're able to meet the additional criteria. But conservatively, I think we'll be eligible for 30% of the cost, and that'll come back to MSD in the form of the tax credit.
That's great.
They'll basically write a check.
Yeah, okay, great. Yeah, that's good news.
I just also wanted to mention that we are also targeting this project for the WPCLF funding, which is that state revolving loan program for water and wastewater. So, which we use for a lot of our capital projects. It is a loan program, but that helps us for financing purposes. So this project should be eligible for that, and then we will also have the federal tax credit as well.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Commissioner Dumas?
Thank you, Madam Chair. My concern also was about reducing the odor and how that was going to happen, and working aggressively to make sure that that does happen. That was my only comment, other than I'm looking at this again. I'll do one of your, 3 years ago, we talked about, you were just saying you're going to come to the board for funding. But there's nothing on here about Hamilton County. I've said for 3 years that we need to indicate, and on the front of this presentation, whoever gets it, I do see Metropolitan Sewer District of Greater Cincinnati. It's Hamilton County Metropolitan sewer district. I don't know what the hesitancy is. It's not a little thing. It's a big thing. And people need to know, even though this is an area I'm not as happy to be the owner of, but we're going to be funding the majority of it. I heard about grants and federal, but you have been doing a little better when you were coming in to report and you had Hamilton County. People need to know that we're gonna be making these hard decisions and these millions of dollars. And I don't know what the hesitancy is to do that, but I would appreciate if you would start it again. That's all I have.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Is there any action that needs to be taken? Okay.
Not today.
Thank you for the update. Really appreciate it. All right, thank you. Okay, if there's no further business, I make a motion to adjourn.
Second?
Commissioner Reese?
Yes.
Commissioner Dreehouse? Commissioner Summer Dumas?
Yes.